Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is Mörk Borg by Occult Mestare Games and Stockholm Cartel. Before we begin, it's worth mentioning that according to the book, Mörk Borg is Swedish for Dark Fort. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 2020, Mörk Borg was successfully kickstarted in 2019, where over 9 times more than was originally asked for was pledged. The book itself is a gorgeously produced 90-page small format hardback that is also available as a PDF. It describes itself as a doom metal album of a game, and it is rules light and art heavy. It's also worth mentioning that the book had a Kickstarter exclusive cover and was printed in both Swedish and in English. Right, to the cover. Here we have a fantastic piece by Johan Nohr that reminds me in some ways of Scrap Princess's pieces for Veins of the Earth. The cover is reverse embossed with the skeleton creature's bones and weapons being sunken. The spine of the book has the title, but also glow-in-the-dark letters between the words that say Psalm 7 when viewed. The back has a suitably demonic piece, and is a small warning that it really isn't suitable for those under 16 years of age. Also of note is the silk bookmark that has the book title and writers on it. A wonderful start so far. Also included with this pack was a small fold-out zine called Ancient Skin, and there is what amounts to a poster map of the setting that is useful, but is also an advertisement for all involved. Right, to the inside. Opening the book, we are greeted with the stark image of a plundered corpse and a bunch of handy tables. There's one for creating names, a small list of occult treasures that are for the most part awful, a little table full of traps, a table of weather with no nice results, it's either lifeless grey or worse, and a table for looting corpses, in which you roll d66, that being 2d6s, and read them like you would a d100. Again, it's full of awful things. A great start. We then move to the credits. Here we have a list of music that helped, which is essentially a list of doom metal bands, and we also have a section on all the different grades of paper contained in the book, also mentioning that over 100 typefaces have been used. On the following page you have the book title and a variant of the font that a lot of doom metal bands use, and it also mentions the pronunciation of the game. After this we get into the flavour of the world, and it credits many dead artists who inadvertently contributed to the book. It tells a tale of the inevitable end. Nobody has seen the sun in this place for years. Doomsayers are right time and time again in this pale lifeless world of the Dark Fort. We then move into the at times intentionally vague history of Mörk Borg. It tells of a monk of the Cretan order, Anak Schläger, who encountered an entity called the Basilisk that has 2 heads. One of which is named Verhu in the year 565. He wrote down the creature's prophecies, which came to be known as the Nameless Scriptures. It then shifts to 300 years later, where a branch of the Cretan order, called the Two-Headed Basilisk, were working on a cathedral and uncovered Schläger's tomb and his scriptures. Since they were found, all of the prophecies contained within have come true. A city has grown around the cathedral, Galgenbeck, known as the greatest city that ever was. There are 2 basilisks, and each has 2 heads, and they argue constantly. The head Verhu predicts annihilation and has always been correct, and as such he is worshipped the most. He loves this position and hungers for temples to be built in his name. It then goes into some of the prehistory of the world. It describes She, the first of the basilisks, as crawling from the Bergen Crypt. She bears the head of denial, Lucy, and the head of deception, Ark, who claims to be the first prophet of truths. Few have ever seen her. She has spawned many since the beginning and cast them down to the Bergen Crypt. But only he survived in a place called the Valley of the Unfortunate Undead. He hates his evil mother. His other head, Gorg, is bitter with envy that his twin Verdu knows the absolute truth. The world is dying. It decays and cracks appear in structures of the past, allowing foul things to come through. The land of Tveland is bound to the west by the Bergen Crypt and is a place of catacombs and ice-caked peaks, and everywhere else is surrounded by the endless sea. Many have sailed the sea to find new land, and all have returned against their will, alive or dead. We then move on to the geography of Mörk Borg. It is essentially a large island, as illustrated here, that is filled with various places. First is Galgenbeck. No king or queen rules here, only the archpriestess Ysilfa Migol. Her throne sits deep beneath the cathedral of the Two-Headed Basilisk, where she is said to collude with the god Necrobel, who is said to have given her eternal life. It is spoken that he whispered the prophecies to Varhu. We also have Sarkash, a forest that seems to be spreading unnaturally fast and is a tangle of overgrown gloom that leads wanderers astray. Within the forest lies Graven Trosk, an ancient cemetery that is filled with mausoleums, stagnant fountains and blank-eyed cherubs. The air here is heavy and stale, and it's difficult to breathe. It's remarked that it's warmer here and frantic scratching can be heard. Rising over Graven Trosk is the Palace of the Shadow King, a gothic black castle that is for the most part a crumbling ruin, and nobody dares dream about what lies beneath the rubble. The Shadow King still calls this place home, a being obscured by ritual with servants that do his will. We then have Grift, a thriving city-state reachable only by 3 bridges, so huge that it's rumoured that only enslaved giants could have built them. King Sigfum the Kind rules this place and is mocked in the streets. Grift is in a state of disrepair, and things crawl from the cracked earth. Sigfum knows the prophecies are true and tries to calmly prepare his people for death. The streets are dotted with huge parchments that are calendars of despair, and each day a leaf is turned, edging ever nearer to the bitter end. When this day comes, Sigfum will march his people to the cliff Terion and take his people off the edge like lemmings to the rocks and sea below, something that the Inquisition of the Two-Headed Basilisk are not keen on as they consider it heretical. There's Kergus, an ice-racked expanse where the Blood Countess Anthelia lives in the spired city of black glass known as Allianz. She is pale, beautiful, and some say eternally young. It's said that the gulls here cry the names of knights that sought her hand. Waves of cold roll from the dreams of the Countess. Anthelia knows that time is short and drains vitality with every breath, touch and glance. Anyone who brings her vibrant life are promised great reward, and her feelings are fragile though her power is absolute. Here is the Western Kingdom, often called Wastland, where peace and wealth once reigned. Lake Onda gifted fish and river trade thrived. It's now home to the sad and gaudy city of Schleswig, where King Fathum IX schemes, consumed with psychosis and invisible fears. It is a land where nobody is safe and the king invades houses, temples and villages. The people are taxed into starvation, and the king is obsessed with Verhu's prophecies while he grows fat. A place nobody speaks of is the Valley of the Unfortunate Undead. It is rumoured that he lives within its crypts. Some say that the soil and the air is lethal, where the traveller is poisoned with memories until their spark of life is mutated into a mournful undeath. It's also claimed that wanderers can find themselves in the realm of the dead, and those without hope travel there in suicide cults, and the trees will drop strange fruit from hempen ropes, while others seek out Varhu in order to persuade him of other fates. After this we have the Calendar of Necrobel. This is used to generate flavourful in-game events. The GM rolls a die each dawn, and a roll of a 1 activates a misery. The type of die is decided by the GM and the group. They range from D100 to D2. The GM then rolls D66 to find out which misery occurs. The 7th misery will also be a 7-7 and be when the 7th seal is broken for the 7th time and the world dies, though each misery can only happen once. It then encourages you to burn your book. These are presented in a Bible-esque page. We then move on to basic equipment, and here we have a dedication to Pell Dead Olin, the singer from the Norwegian black metal band Morbid, who committed suicide in 1991. The grim tale surrounding Dead can be found on the web, but be warned, it's not a happy story. Okay, so to equip your character, you roll D6, D12 and D12 and make note of what comes up. On the third table we have such strangeness as D4 monkeys that ignore but love you, and the famous small but vicious dog that is so fondly remembered as being part of the Ratcatcher's equipment in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. It points out that scrolls are the twisted magic of Mörkborg. It also gives a simple 5-step guide to creating a character, making the 5th point by saying name your character if you wish, it will not save you. The next 2 pages give the damage for the various weapons in the game in a really clever and gruesome drawing showing the injuries they cause, as well as giving us D4 damage for the femur on a full page. This is followed by a 2-page spread of the bigger weapons such as the crossbow and Zweihander, and after this is a page of armour and equipment, which conveniently includes a section on bribes. Armour is in 4 tiers, none, light, medium and heavy, all plus a shield. It gives you a difficulty rating penalty and reduces damage slightly based on tier. Scrolls cannot be used when wielding 2-handed weapons and medium or heavy armour. It then moves on to the system itself. Characters have 4 abilities: agility, presence, strength and toughness, which I feel are all pretty self-explanatory. Each stat is 3d6 and bonuses and penalties are worked out here. Those characters that are not created with the optional classes can roll 4d6 and drop the lowest. Tests are made against a difficulty rating or DR. This gives a target number that they need to beat on a D20. DRs generally range from 6, which is a test so simple that people laugh at you for failing, to an 18, which should not be possible. Encumbrance is your strength plus 8 in normal sized items, and beyond that, strength and agility checks have the DR increased by plus 2. It's impossible to carry more than strength plus 8 times 2. Hit points are toughness plus D8, and at 0 you are broken, and at negative you are dead. This is followed by the combat section, which is simply called Violence. Initiative is incredibly simple. A d6 is rolled, on a 1 to 3 the enemies go first, and on a 4 to 6 the players go first. It's agility plus d6 to determine who goes first in your group's order. Players roll for both attack and defence. Enemies don't roll dice. Melee is a strength test, dr12. Ranged is a presence test, dr12, and defence is an agility, dr12. A fail means the enemy hits you, and they only attack once per round unless otherwise stated. Criticals are a natural 20, and extra damage is based on the tier of armour that you have. Fumbles are a natural 1, on an attack the weapon breaks, and on defence the player takes double damage and their armour is reduced by a tier. Broken characters roll d4 just to see how broken they are, and it ranges from being knocked unconscious to being dead. We have a page on how long a round is, as well as simple rules for resting, reactions for meeting creatures, and morale. The next section is entitled Getting Better or Worse. Essentially, the GM decides an appropriate time for characters to improve, whether that be after killing a powerful enemy, completing a scenario or the like. They get more hit points by rolling 60-10, and if it's equal or greater than their current total, they gain d6 maximum hit points. They also gain an item that is left in the debris. Ability scores can also rise with a d6 being rolled against each, and if it's equal or greater, it goes up by 1 to a maximum of +6. Results below decrease it by 1, and any ability that is -3 to +1 is always increased by 1, unless the d6 result is a 1, so it is then reduced by 1, but never lower than -3. After this we have a section called Powers. These are normally found inscribed on scrolls, and each morning the character rolls presence plus d4 to determine how many times they can use those powers that day. A scroll is read using a presence test of dr12. Failure loses you a fear point, and it will always fail in the worst way. Criticals and fumbles are the GM's choice, though there is an arcane catastrophe table later on. It lists some unclean scrolls, i.e. those used to affect others in a bad way, and sacred scrolls that are beneficial to yourself and others. They're all suitably named, almost like doom metal songs, with things like Tongue of Eris, Foul Psychopomp and Unmet Fate. The next section is a double-page spread of She, the two heads Lucy and Ark, and something called the Basilisk's Demand. A d20 roll will give you some random thing that you need to do for She. Things like a widower's wedding ring, a body mutilated by those who loved her in life, and eyes that have seen the shimmering fields. We then move on to optional rules. It starts with Omens or Yartechen. This is essentially a fortune mechanic that is driven by the tangled fates of alternate worlds. If you're playing without a class, you gain d2 Omens, and after use they are regenerated after 6 hours rest. They do the maximum damage with one attack, reroll a dice, yours or someone else's, lower damage you are dealt by d6, neutralise a critical or fumble, and lastly lower a DR test by -4. After this are some optional tables for generating a background. There are terrible traits that are rolled on a d20 twice. You could be a large mix of awful ideas. Then this is followed by broken bodies where you can generate a physical deformity. Things like rotting face wears a mask, or hauntingly beautiful, unnervingly clean. And across the page we have bad habits, things like you pick your nose so deep it bleeds, or consistently lose important items and forget vital facts. All very flavourful and sure to generate interesting characters. This is followed by Troubling Tales, a place where you can generate a backstory. You're encouraged to roll d20 or throw a knife at this page. As per the others, they are all sorts of disturbing backstories, things like very recently murdered a close relative, very recently, or burn or be burned is the fate you accept. We then move on to Arcane Catastrophes. This is a table of particularly nasty things that happen when you fumble a scroll reading. It has disturbing things like one by one your teeth fall out, long brittle fingernails replace them in your gums, or light itself despises you. If you gaze upon a candle, lamp or torch, it goes out. If you roll the same result twice, you explode in screaming black fire that water only feeds. The next section deals with the optional classes. The first up is the Fanged Deserter, something akin to the Uruk-hai from Tolkien. They're a warrior-type class that are based around their massive teeth that are used as a weapon. The classes all have an earliest memory which you generate and some ability modifiers. They also begin with an interesting item, things like Wizard's Teeth that boost your combat damage, or Crumpled Monster Mask, which strikes fear in the hearts of lesser creatures. The next class is Gutterborn Scum. These are born into extreme poverty and essentially a rogue class. They have specialities, things like Filthy Fingernails, which gives them a bonus to sleight of hand and they can be used to pick locks with, or Excretal Stealth, which gives them an almost preternatural ability to hide in muck and filth. We then have the Esoteric Hermit. These are a strange wizard bard-esque class with powers such as Initiate of the Invisible College, which allows them to summon scrolls, or Bard of the Undying, which allows the otherworldly melodies of their harp to give a +d4 on reaction rolls. Next is Wretched Royalty. This is essentially a noble class that has decent equipment and have things like Poltroon, the court jester, an NPC who journeys with you who makes enemies lose concentration in combat, but is otherwise useless, irritating and emotionally draining, or Horn of the Schleswig Lord, which allows you to once a day make a blare from a dented old trumpet to invoke a DR12 presence test. If passed, one creature may automatically pass their next non-combat test. After this we have the Heretical Priest, who are a cleric type, so hunted by the two-headed basilisks of the One True Faith. They have facets of Christianity amongst their powers and have interesting items such as the Stolen Mitre, which makes them harder to hit in combat, and when pulled over the ears outside of battle makes them invisible, or Lists of Sin, which is a long document that is cross-referenced against reality to root out evildoers. This, with a past DR10 presence roll, illuminates evil creatures. The final class list is the Occult Herbmaster. These are essentially a twisted take on druids that can brew poisons and other nasty concoctions in their portable laboratory. The next section deals with the horrific creatures of Tveland. First we have the Seth or Goblin. These creatures carry a curse that means if you're hurt by one of them, you must find and kill it or you become one of them. It's also interesting to see that the head of the Seth is the same as that of a real-life goblin shark. It also lists the bounty you will get for their head, captured or dead. Next is the Bent or Scum. These are foul rogues guilty of countless crimes that wait in the shadows to backstab you. After this we have the Zakuma or Berserker. These are terrifying battle ragers with hardened skin that will ambush you in a frenzy. There is the Rat or Wraith. These are swift, elusive and difficult to hit, soundless phantoms that drain strength and presence and who always win initiative. There is the Bells, a blood-drenched skeleton that can mimic voices to lure victims with piercing weapons and who hides soundless in the shadows. There is the Lich, a weak undead necromancer. They are described as an anti-magic wound in reality who can steal the contents of nearby scrolls. There is the Arbint or Troll. These creatures are cowardly despite their size. They go larger when healing wounds and never forget who hurt them. And then there is the Node or Zombie. Anyone bitten by them makes a DR8 test against poison or dies within 2 days, rising from the dead to become one of them. Turning over we have Lady Porcelain, the undead doll with this frankly terrifying illustration. Relic thieves, defamers and corrupt clerks are punished by having their children or grandchildren enclosed in porcelain dolls to die a slow death and are placed in the windows of cathedrals. Many of them return as vengeful undead. Their gaze freezes those that look upon it with fear. There is the Thinx or Grotesque, a gargoyle-type creature that is still as stone and have a terrifying gaze. After this we have the Aland or Wickhead Knife Wielder. These disturbing creatures have a lamp as a head and skulk about the outskirts of cities waiting to stab you with their filthy infected knives. They can magically douse all nearby light sources. And finally there's the Ulotha or Wyvern, who for Merkborg standards are pretty tame, being very much like the classic creature. After this we have a section called Outcast Followers. These are essentially monsters that may join and assist your party. There are the Earthbound, creatures that are part dog, that are viewed as diseased, foul and disloyal. There is the Wild Wickhead. These are fickle and suspicious creatures that can help in combat. There is the Pale One, a strange alien creature who can create concoctions and have sacred and unclean powers. And finally the Prowler, a rogue who can do all manner of rogue-like things for you. Turning the page, we have this incredibly striking upside-down cross imagery and then a contained scenario, Rot Black Sludge or the Shadow King's Lost Hair. Spoiling this great little scenario would be criminal, but suffice to say that it definitely has the feel the rest of the book has created. After this, we have a section called Even More Reasons to Risk One's Life. This gives us tables related to where you wander, who or what contacts you, and even a table called Adventure Spark, which gives a single line that could sprout a scenario. We then have a section called One of the Many Bedeviled Dungeons, which is a basic random dungeon creator, and then finally a single page which covers all of the rules you need, and the register, which is the index. Merkborg is something that passed me by on Kickstarter, but one that I had heard lots of good things about in gaming circles after its subsequent release, so when they approached me to do a review of the book I was keen to see what all the fuss was about. I informed them that, as you may already know, I don't review PDFs on my channel, as the physicality of the book is a consideration that I talk about, to which I was told that they actually advocate the book itself as they put so much hard work into it, stressing that they didn't even want to put out a PDF as an option for purchase. And having read it, I understand why. Quite simply, Merkborg is one of the most outstanding books I have ever had the privilege to review. It's stunning from cover to cover. The atmosphere drips from the pages, and the minimalist system makes it just that bit better. This is a game about you and your surroundings, not the amount of dice you roll. The usage of paper, art, font and foil make it feel like an interactive art installation, with the cherry on top being that you actually get to play in the doom-laden world of Tveiland. Everything is fit for purpose and not an inch of space is wasted. There are full pages of art with just a bit of game information on them that are done in such a way that you feel that the art was vital to tell the story. The background of the world with the prophecies of Verhu are just superb, with every location being somewhere you would really rather avoid. If ever Doom Metal could be transformed into a game, Mörk Borg is that game. Combat is quick and brutal, magic is powerful and destructive, and there are genuinely no lights of hope visible in this darkest of worlds. This is the OSR taken to a completely different level, and a game I can see being run in conventions all over the world. You will either love or hate this book. I give Mörk Borg a 10 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to give me a double Viking, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I'll put some links below. However, I would really urge you to spend the cash and buy the book rather than the PDF. You won't be disappointed. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.